Daring. You just stare.
Literally we've done it for like 5 minutes. it's like terrifying. We just literally look at each other and like
when
time
I found a sociopath.
and like time stops. That's just how it's been for us from the beginning.
No, we're like, oh my god, there's not enough time.
Oh.
And they score again.
Blake Lively signed a sworn declaration in court under the penalty of perjury. Miss Lively made some glorious statements, which I don't think are actually true. Now, lying under oath would be considered perjury, and while it's rarely ever penalized in civil cases, it can happen. I'm not necessarily saying she will be charged with perjury here. That's not the intent. But I will say that it does poke some holes in her credibility. And we already know that her credibility is relatively shot. People that come to this channel have known that I've been covering this case since the beginning. And, I was one of these people that when I first saw her administrative complaint, I was like, I believe her. And even when I first saw the dancing video, I was like, maybe he's being inappropriate. And then I saw the timeline of relevant events. I saw Wayfair's amended complaint. I saw all kinds of receipts. And then I just started following the case. I have covered every filing. I have looked at every angle. I have discussed all the hearings. And throughout the process, I never wanted to not believe the woman. But what happened was I started believing the other women that were involved in the case. All the other women that were impacted by the statements that Blake was making, and all the other women that were being negatively impacted by Blake. And I started to realize that there's this thing that happens in our mainstream media, specifically right now with the New York Times, where at all angles, they are trying to attach Justin Baldoni and his publicist, Melissa Nathan, to all kinds of smear campaigns for other people that weren't even clients of Melissa Nathan. Assumptions are being made about people that criticized Taylor Swift's new album or people that are criticizing Taylor Swift right now. And the allegation was, again, trying to attempt that the same people that smeared Blake Lively are also now smearing Taylor Swift. And listen, I was in the Epstein files over the weekend, and there is some shady ass people. There are some shady people, horrible people that are in public office, that are in positions of power in entertainment and in Hollywood. There is a huge problem of exploitation of women in entertainment and around the world. That doesn't mean that a single woman gets to upend and uproot everything that we as women have been fighting for. Safety, protection, not to be treated like objects, have our contributions be treated equally as men, having representation in media, in leadership positions, in politics, and in entertainment, and all facets of the world and corporations of women. That's all we've ever wanted. We have never wanted to hate men. But Blake Lively and some of her friends, I would say, are doing what's called misandry. And I fear that what she's doing right now has completely just demolished all the things that we worked for, specifically when it came to Me Too. Were some men, did the people that come forward misrepresent what happened? Yes. But did some men get held responsible and go to prison? Yes. Harvey Weinstein went to prison. He is still in prison. He's a bad guy. He was also very connected to Jeffrey Epstein. And Blake Lively is using Harvey Weinstein's attorneys who discredited his victims. David Boies, Sigrid McCauley, the Boies' law firm, while simultaneously representing Virginia Giuffre and other survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. They also represented Harvey Weinstein, and they implemented and used a company called Black Cube to spy on and create relationships with people that were accusing Harvey Weinstein in an attempt to discredit them. They went as far as to plant people to befriend accusers like Rose McGowan. It's all documented. It's all proven. Boies, his law firm, had a mass exodus of attorneys that have left. Survivors of Epstein expressed their outrage in the Epstein files that were released where they accused Sigrid and David of using these lawsuits to profit off of their trauma, withholding hundreds of millions of dollars from survivors, doing this as an effort to silence them, and then also their fear that the same tactics that they implemented against Harvey's victims, they would do to them. There's so much that's happened in society in the last couple months and just in the last few years, and really getting people like Harvey Weinstein put behind bars was amazing for women in entertainment. Seeing other men get held accountable, like Danny Masterson, Sean Combs, R. Kelly, and the idea that we need to place Justin Baldoni in the same category as these men is outrageous to me. Listen, I don't know Justin Baldoni, but I know that based on what I've seen, he doesn't seem to fall in the same categories as Weinstein, R. Kelly, Danny Masterson, the Alexander brothers, Orrin and Alan, or Sean Combs, or Epstein, or Ari Emanuel, who's also in the files. I want to share with you what she wrote in her declaration that is so blatantly misrepresented by the facts, and it's proof that Blake Lively's lawsuit and her declaration is being used to protect other powerful men who behaved badly, including her husband, Ryan Reynolds, and trying to distance Hugh Jackman being at her apartment. Incidentally, Hugh Jackman is also in the files. His 2012 movie, Les Miserables, Jeffrey was invited to Jackman's best friend's penthouse, who is not Ryan Reynolds, by the way, for a private screening and dinner for that film. Jeffrey was interested in becoming an investor in the film. He went to a private event where Hugh Jackman hosted a dinner for a very intimate number of people, and Epstein was there. Blake Lively's attorneys represented Weinstein, and Weinstein and Epstein had a relationship for years, and girls were funneled back and forth between all these men. Ryan Reynolds has never spoken out to denounce Weinstein. Oh, and don't forget Woody Allen. Woody Allen is all over these files. Blake has never spoken against Woody Allen or Harvey Weinstein, and Ryan's never spoken out ever against any of these men. I want to note here that in her declaration, this is an example of her protecting a powerful man in Hollywood. On or around April 25th of 2023, I informed Baldoni that I was aware he spoke to Saladino about my weight. Baldoni had come to my office to work on script revisions, and before we started, I raised his conversation with Saladino about my weight and conveyed that it was upsetting to me and it felt invasive and inappropriate. My husband, Ryan Reynolds, who was working in our office at the time on his own film, he briefly walked over and joined our discussion, but returned back in his own work shortly thereafter. Later on, Hugh Jackman stopped by briefly to pick up Reynolds for lunch. He shook Baldoni's hand at the door and exchanged niceties. Jackman left with Reynolds. No one but Baldoni, myself, and Reynolds was anywhere near in our office during the discussion about Baldoni's inappropriate inquiries about my weight. Okay, well, let's look at what the text messages actually show from that period. Same day on April 25th, after Baldoni had left her apartment, Blake Lively texted her friend named Lewis, who I have no idea who this is, but we'll see. And she wrote, "And I know you feeling rage at a stranger shouldn't feel good, but damn it did. It was strangely healing. He's a bag of hot gas. But he still made me feel bad and very upset. Even though I know he's a clown, it still hurts. So thank you for circling your wagons around me. I'll send you his Instagram. He is so cringe. He's got the rights to this massive book. He's cast himself to star and direct. I chose to bet on him, and I also own a huge piece of the movie, so I'm having to bet on myself. But yikes, that gave me a crisis of confidence. I had a 3-hour meeting with him today. He got it loud and clear, but still, being a woman in this industry. For your cringe pleasure," she sends a link to his Instagram. And then the friend says, "Oh my God, I cannot watch him. He's a liar and fake, and he's full of shit, so full of shit. Okay, I'm done. You will be the reason this film gets made and works, not him. It's a movie, not a soundbite, and he will quickly realize he will need you tremendously to take him through this. Just wait. He will have this meltdown because he's going to realize he isn't all that, and he will have to rely on you. And then that happens, dear God, gloat, gloat, gloat to me." That's so well said. And it's a movie, not a soundbite. Then she wrote, he had a bit of a meltdown today when I told him, I need nothing from you on this film as an actor or director. I'm good. I've got me. I only need one thing from you, not to make me feel like shit. I don't even need you to make me feel confident. I've got that. I only need the bare minimum from you. Just don't make me feel like shit. That's your only job. I've got the rest. He audibly sobbed. It was the performance of a lifetime original movie. And then she wrote, do you know how happy that would have made me if you were in the room? This man is terrified of women. His wife, my God, I keep imagining that I'm going to have to ask her to blink twice if she needs to be extracted. I will gloat. Thank you for reminding me that we have permission to do so. I'll share any good news with you. And yes, you called it narcissist beyond. I'm not a unicorn as so often has been said. Dear God. So she gloated that he audibly sobbed. Like she took pleasure in the fact that he was crying and then mocked him after they berated him regarding speaking to Don about preparing his back for a lift scene. This is the exact opposite of, Ryan not being involved in the conversation and only just subtly walking over for a moment, just for a second. Now, the way that Justin described it was he was at her penthouse and greeted by Reynolds, who swore at Baldoni and accused him of fat shaming his wife. Ryan was alleged to have said, how dare you fucking ask my wife's weight? What's wrong with you? The tone from Reynolds and Lively was so aggressive that Baldoni felt he had no choice but to offer repeated and completely unwarranted apologies for what was a good faith and reasonable question to his trainer. Reynolds demanded that Baldoni remove the lift scene entirely. It says in Lively's complaint, she falsely states that the scene wasn't even in the film, suggesting it never existed. Contrary to her attempt to manipulate verifiable facts, the only reason the scene was not in the film is that Lively and Reynolds demanded it to be removed, despite the fact that it had already been rehearsed with a stunt double. Accommodating Lively, Baldoni rewrote the scene with her, despite the fact that for creative reasons he felt the scene necessary. Baldoni was stunned by her accusations because when Lively had earlier expressed concerns about her postpartum figure on February 17th and the 24th, he genuinely reassured her that she did not need to worry about her body. In fact, it was Lively who insisted that she be fit for the role, despite his assurances. In this meeting, where Baldoni was aggressively confronted by Reynolds and Lively, Lively told Baldoni that if he could not get on board with how she works, he still had 2 weeks to recast her. He says it would have been impossible to recast her without incurring millions in expenses for a film that was already half shot. Her explanation of just, I don't need anything from you, just don't treat me like shit. So these are vastly different points of view about what happened at that meeting. He did not mention Hugh Jackman being there. It only appeared in the timeline document that was released and unsealed as evidence. It was made by his attorneys, and Hugh's name appeared on that list, or on that timeline. And on that timeline, it says, Justin went over to Ryan and Blake's penthouse, and Ryan unloaded on Justin how horrible it was that Justin would ask about the woman's weight, claimed that JB was fat-shaming Blake. Justin was completely embarrassed and apologized, even shared some tears. Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman were also present in the apartment at the time. That's all it said. Now, she never said that Taylor Swift wasn't there. She only said that Hugh Jackman wasn't there, oddly. I'd like to also, so Blake is covering for Ryan, obviously, by saying that he never raised his voice. He was barely he was barely there. He was barely part of the conversation, but she literally texts a friend and says that they made him cry. And she was proud of it. There's another time in her declaration where she speaks about this January 4th meeting that occurred at her house. And it says, consistent with the protections letter, I requested and hosted a meeting with the director, Baldoni, all producers, Baldoni, Heath, and Alex Sachs, the Sony representative, Giannetti, and a newly engaged third-party producer, Todd Black, before filming resumed after the SAG-AFTRA strikes ended. I asked my husband, Ryan Reynolds, to join us as my designated representative. Given that much of what I was speaking about was sexual harassment and feeling unsafe, while he was one of the participants in the meeting and was candid and serious about his concerns, Reynolds did not yell or raise his